Hi there, I'm Scott Lowe with ActualTech Media, and thank you for joining me for this Spotlight Series video. Today I'm joined by Randall, the CEO of Cosmonic and the co-creator of wasmCloud, and Stuart Harris, the founder and chief scientist at Red Badger. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us on.
So Liam, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to ask you a high-level question. What would you say you do here? What problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, I would say what we're trying to do here is make developers' lives easier. The team behind Cosmonic created wasmCloud a few years ago when we were working at a large financial, and we really want to help developers to write software more quickly and run it everywhere with WebAssembly securely.
And what are some of the biggest challenges that organizations were facing in terms of software development that you're trying to help them get through?
Absolutely, Scott. I think the reality is that the challenges of tomorrow cannot be solved with the tools of today, and that developers and enterprises are facing three big challenges in their development workflow. The first is portability. We're no longer aligned to a single CPU architecture with a future where distributed applications play a major role, but also in the core clouds, where organizations like AWS are launching different processor architectures like their ARMs. The second challenge is security. We need security that is no longer pinned to the very idea of Linux processes. We need security that's more granular, and WebAssembly offers us a solution with a capability-driven security. And the third is that our applications are held back and hobbled by the fact that we embed specific libraries and capabilities inside of our applications, things like database drivers, message queues, non-functional code. And by breaking that dependency, we really unlock developer productivity and let them run it everywhere with tools like wasmCloud.
Stuart, you've been working with Cosmonic in a consulting type capacity. Can you kind of tell us about your relationship and some of the problems that you're seeing Cosmonic / wasmCloud solve?
Thank you. Yeah, we work with a lot of big clients that have big microservice applications, cloud native applications that are quite hard to build. There's so many things you have to think about, and the top of the T is so broad these days, and we find ourselves concentrating a lot on the non-functional requirements and the jobs like talking to a database and all the things that we have to keep doing over and over and over again. And I think I was inspired by what Istio and Linkerd are doing in the service mesh space, and what DAP is doing in the application space about abstracting away these, like pushing the side effects to the edge, if you imagine an onion, so we can concentrate on the core. And that's where the business value is, and that's what we should be concentrating on. And it's all too often we spend too much time on the things that don't really matter and that don't add so much value. So wasmCloud's been great in helping us to focus on the business logic and the core value.
It seems like some of the great advancements in technology this century have revolved around abstraction. I mean, we think about virtual machines. That was sort of the OG abstraction that we think of in the modern era, and it's led to a whole bunch of other advances or stuff that's come after it. Liam, when you think about some of those abstraction advances, what is wasmCloud doing as the latest sort of abstraction technology? Like, how does it work? What does it look like? I think you have a slide as well.
Yeah, that's great. If we think about the last few epochs of technology, they've really been driven by two indexes. The first is some sort of an abstraction format. So with the virtual machine, we sort of said, hey, it's crazy that we build applications and we create images that are aligned for a specific computer and a specific set of hardware. So the virtual machine, as orchestrated by the public cloud, really ushered in and unlocked a wave of productivity for enterprises. And enterprises then ran straight into the next big challenge, which was from a stack perspective, the idea that we're pinning to a specific operating system, and containers came along. And as an abstraction, they freed us from the idea of developing and installing software in a specific computer and gave us a way to make that more portable, more shareable. And as orchestrated by Kubernetes, that freed us from the independence or the dependence on a specific cloud and gave us the ability to take our software to any cloud. And wasmCloud is just the natural next extension in that same wave of abstractions. And the next big thing that we pin our applications to are specific capabilities. Things like specific databases in a specific cloud that act as anchors, holding us in place. And when we choose to adopt technologies like wasmCloud that give us a clean and clear abstraction at those layers, our applications become more portable. And when we combine that with WebAssembly, we can now run those same applications everywhere securely.
So as an abstraction layer for libraries, essentially at this point, I mean, Kubernetes takes it for the operating system level or containers. And then we have wasmCloud, which really virtualizes and abstracts libraries. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One is, it sounds like this is not a brownfield environment technology. You're not going to refactor applications and have to change all your libraries out. So this is a greenfield type scenario, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But I would say that what microservices do is they enable us to bring the greenfield in gradually. You know, when we think about iterating or developing our applications, this technology is not a complete verse. This is a better together story where wasmCloud itself is compatible with, but not dependent upon the current technology. Just as you can run containers on top of virtual machines, you can run wasmCloud on top of containers. You can also run it without containers. So there is a better together story here where organizations can start to and get almost all of the value props out of a technology like wasmCloud while still operating in their brownfield. The abstractions that we have in software architecture allow you to start integrating in and taking advantages of the advances in technology that wasmCloud brings right away. So yes, it's a greenfield technology from an individual API and project perspective, but it works in your existing brownfield.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to say you can't slowly refactor applications to take advantage of this model, which, to your point from earlier, is going to still reduce overall ongoing technical debt. I think on that note, let's talk about technical debt. When we think about traditional development activities, especially ones where we're looking at traditional library structures and all the other traditional technologies that are out there, we bring into the potential for loads of technical debt. And we bring in potential for loads of security issues because of the way we're having to develop applications. Can you speak to those two things just for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the most compelling reasons that are driving the rapid adoption of wasmCloud for enterprises. The ongoing maintenance of having all of these libraries embedded in your application end up dominating the sort of enterprise lifecycle for an application and a microservice. The dirty secret is that modern cloud native application development today starts with 20,000 lines of someone else's code that you use to meet non-functional requirements. And that becomes a ball and chain that holds you back because each individual development team needs to maintain those applications. They need to patch those vulnerabilities over the life of the application. And this manifests itself in not only busy work, but in boards of lows, mediums, and high vulnerabilities that need to be responded to with different cadences inside an enterprise. So by letting go of those dependencies on an application-specific basis, organizations can maintain Lego blocks, if you will, that they can use to compose their applications of centrally. It enables development teams to move faster, and it gives us the ability to make those decisions around which capabilities we might bind to at runtime. So instead of starting with the software architecture that ties you to a specific cloud or to a specific topology, you can now start making those decisions at runtime, giving you more flexibility in a more secure way.
Stuart, when you think about some of the outcomes your customers have seen as they've moved forward with this, can you speak briefly to some of the stuff they've been able to overcome?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things for me, I think, is the fact that this technology allows us to push through the cloud almost, so that we can build a homogeneous layer above cloud, so we can be true multi-cloud and we can fail over transparently between them. So our workloads effectively become location agnostic, and that's like really powerful. One of our clients, probably the largest bank in Europe, has Azure in one country, they have AWS in another country, they have on-prem in a third country. it's almost like they have this very heterogeneous environment that they're trying to build microservices applications in today. And so you can imagine the services in one country want to talk to services in another country. They've got to open firewalls. They've got to configure like connections between clouds. And it's this heterogeneous environment that's really a problem. What they want to do is lift themselves above all of those, almost pushing the cloud provider down to become like a utility. So I always think of it like a table with multiple legs. Like you might have an Azure leg and an AWS leg, and a GCP leg. The cloud's in the middle somewhere, and then this table on the top is a consistent. I mean, Kubernetes is great, right? Because Kubernetes is the same in every cloud, and that's brilliant. That's kind of the first time we've had that, but still within each cloud, we tend to be doing different things. We're talking to different cloud vendor specific services in different ways. And so you can't really move an application from one cloud to another very easily. And so by lifting up above the clouds, we get this really true multi-cloud failover, location agnostic, resilient, homogeneous. We don't reinvent the wheel 100 times for each cloud provider, which is great.
So is that to say, basically, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm hearing you correctly, but does this basically mean that the cloud can get swapped out? Like if I'm running Azure today, I could swap out for AWS tomorrow and not have to change my code? Yeah,
because you're kind of sitting above them, and the workloads aren't aware about whether they're running in AWS or GCP. And actually, they could be running in both, and they could move over from one to the other, and the application is not any the wiser.
Scott, perhaps we can provide a link, but I would actually point out that Red Badger just gave a talk at last week's 2021 KubeCon NA Cloud Native WebAssembly Day, if that's not a mouthful, where they demonstrated this live on stage, and it was eye-catching for sure. They have two workflows where they're running the same application in two different cloud providers, and they show the resilience of failing from one cloud to the other and back again. It really was a spectacular demonstration, and those talks should be live on YouTube here shortly. Perhaps we can link them in the show notes.
Very good. So the other the thing I have to ask is, what's the potential here for lock-in? I understand there's an answer to this, but my first reaction when I heard about this was, what happens if this just goes away tomorrow and I've created an entire, armada of applications upon which my organization depends? What happens?
Scott, I think that's a great concern. And while we originally started this and it was sponsored by one organization, we had Microsoft join the project almost on day one as a contributor. And since then, this community has grown so large that this last August, Cosmonic effected the donation of wasmCloud into the CNCF as a sandbox project. And one of the many things you get from donating your project to the CNCF is not only shared transparent governance, but you can also see who is participating in this community very transparently. And there are large financial services, there are defense contractors, there are grocery chains, there are all sorts of organizations that range from tiny startups that are building their whole enterprise around wasmCloud to some of the largest providers in tech now collaborating on the wasmCloud journey. And while Cosmonic employs many of the core team members, there are so many wonderful community participants such as Stuart's Red Badger. They recently showed up helping to build, or actually not helping to build, leading the development of a Kubernetes operator for wasmCloud, really helping to integrate these ecosystems in these communities even further, and really playing into the story around open source, eating the world. And honestly, we were humbled to be a part of such an incredible community, and are absolutely committed to growing and extending it through the journey of Cosmonic as well.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for this conversation and for teaching us about wasmCloud, some of the challenges and honestly solutions facing application developers today. I think our audience will really enjoy this.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And as always, thank you to our audience for watching this Spotlight Series video. If you want to learn more about these folks and what they do, where can they go?
I guess to
cosmonic.com.
Cosmonic.com, wasmCloud.com, or write for the developer manual at wasmCloud.dev.
Perfect. And if you want to see more Spotlight Series videos, you can go to the other URL we already showed. That was my bad. But it's youtube.com/ActualTech Media. Thank you so much.